Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully the volume's not too loud. Just let me know how the volume is if you're just joining us. Obviously it's beer o'clock, as we say in Australia. Time to crack a stubby and join me for a nice drink, guys. I know it's freezing cold, especially if you're in America and the USA, but over here in Australia it's really hot. I'll talk about that in a minute, but we're just going to wait for a few people to come in online. So obviously if you are here, say hi in the chat. If you are coming in a little bit later, just skip to where the pre-show disappears. You'll see the Osler Images sign and we'll start actually the chat from there. I've just noticed that a few people are already in here now. Tony's here. David's here as well. I think David was just the one that bought the A9, so it'll be interesting to see what he thinks about that as well. David Johnson said, it's doing well, my friend. He's talking about his A9 that he just bought. Did a quick test shoot with it yesterday, so how exciting. Like I've said to you all before, I just adore my A9. It's the best camera I've ever owned. So I'm going to start having a drink anyway with you guys. I've got lime in there today, not lemon, so it's a bit of lime in there today. Hi Tom, how are you from Florida? Oh, I've had that in the freezer. That is so good. Oh, Dave. Thank you very much. Wow, that's really hit early. Thank you so much for that, Dave. I really appreciate that. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. 40 mile per hour breeze, temperature 11, wind chill of -4. That's ridiculous. What is it today? It's around 30 degrees Fahrenheit Celsius today. Tomorrow is going to be really hot. It's around 42, 43 here tomorrow, which is around about 110, I think. Degrees Fahrenheit, so we're the complete opposite to you guys. I'll be sitting out naked in the back garden probably tomorrow. That's probably a horrible thought for you guys. Yeah, it's really hot at the moment. A bit of a heat wave going on. Today's really hot too. Luckily, I haven't got a wedding tomorrow because I would have been, it would have been terrible shooting at 43 degrees Celsius. It would have been way too hot. So I'm lucky I haven't got one tomorrow. So let's have a look who's here. I want to thank Delta Dave for the donation there. Thank you so much, mate. So we've got Tony in here. Gerald's here. David Johnson's here. David Johnson's just bought the Sony A9, so it'll be interesting to see what he says. He said he's just done a quick test shoot with it yesterday. It's probably the wrong weather for him to be out. Please be safe if you are from the States, obviously, with the snowstorms that's there. Please all stay warm. I did put a note on here about joining our Facebook page because I'll just show that now why a few people are in here. I've set up a Facebook page and it's called the Photography and Video School. Let me just pull it up here. And it's one place too to actually get information about when the shows are going to be coming live, because I do always post it first actually in there. So if you can, there's someone wants to join, I'll allow that in a minute. So you can see here I've said a live show 45 minutes ago, but we've got stacks of stuff now that's actually starting to come in with people doing reviews, and it is also video and still, so I'm allowing it to be both. I'm allowing people to share their work on there. There's no real restrictions apart from doing live broadcasts, which is going to be strictly for me because I am intending to do live broadcasts on there. I may do the first one very soon actually. I'm going to take you through the Sony 100 to 400 that I used the other day, today, but I'm actually going to take it through there in detail, I think, and I'll do that on the Facebook page. So if you'd like to join that, that'll be the only place that you see that. But we've got stacks of stuff in there now, guys. So you can see there's David said his new camera, which he got for a bargain, actually. Just bought that the other day in there. So there's stacks of stuff going on, and like I said, there's also a lot of video stuff in there as well because it is photography and video. So please, if you can, join the Facebook group. It's a place particularly where I will answer any questions immediately, or as soon as I see them that come up, and there's also other people that will answer questions as well. So please join us there, and that is especially for you guys to come in. So yeah, I've put the link in the questions over here. You can see that the link is actually up here. To join that, but it's actually called the Photography and Video School. Let me just write that in there. And video. So that's the Facebook page that if you look down here, I'll just hide this pre-show. Photography and Video School. So if you are intending to join, that's the one to actually join there. I've got stacks to talk to you about today. I've also got some interesting news and rumours that we can discuss. I'm also going to take you through how I felt about the Sony 100 to 400mm lens, because that's also really important, but I'll go through this all again in a second once we start. It's just about 2 o'clock, so I think we're going to start now. So let me bring up the a7RIII Images sign and we'll start from there, guys. So see you in a minute. G'day from down under, everyone. I just said before in the pre-show there that it is beer o'clock. Just about to have my Corona. You guys in the US probably thinking, oh God, it's too cold to be having a Corona. It's very hot down here. It's around 30 degrees today, Celsius. But tomorrow's around 42, I think, or 43 probably where I live. So it's going to be around about 110 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's going to be a really hot one tomorrow. Luckily, I haven't got a wedding shoot, which I'm really thankful for. So I do feel sorry for all the wedding shooters tomorrow that have got weddings, because it's going to be crazy. But with a complete opposite to you guys, I've been in the chat here saying how cold it actually was. We've got a number of people here. We've got Tony's in here, Gerald's here, David's here. Dave Johnson, who's just bought his Sony A9, is here. Tom Matrix is here. Delta Dave gave a wonderful donation, so thanks so much, Dave. Lewis is here. He's saying 40 mile per hour breeze, temperature 11, wind chill of -4, so it's pretty cold over there. Studio 96 Vienna is here. Stuart Marsden's here. Diana's here. G'day, Diana. How are you? Gerald's here. G'day, Gerald. Rad's here. 12 inches of snow. We don't get snow here, only in the mountains. Rad's here, Diana's also here, so there's a stack. Rich is here also, so we've got stacks here, Altrix here as well, and Brian's here as well. Great to see you here, guys, and we're going to have a really interesting chat today. I'm going to take you through a number of news and rumours, articles that are going to come up. Obviously, this show always ends up being around an hour. It just tends to be that, so if you think it's a bit long, you might just want to skip ahead or something. But now, if you aren't in the live chat, obviously you can put your questions down below. If you are here live, please leave your questions in the live chat and put @DavidOsler if you want to make sure that I actually get them. And like I said, time to crack a stubby, everyone. Join me with the Corona o'clock or beer o'clock. Oh, beautiful. How's the audio, guys, today? Is it much better? Because last week I know I had an issue which I've eventually solved with the help of some others. Just let me know if the audio is okay. Now let's start with, now before we actually start, I'm going to take you through the review too of the Sony 100 to 400 as well. I will do a brief review of that. If you want to actually go for an in-depth review, please go into the Facebook page that I've just shared before, the Video Photography and Video School, because I am going to do a live discussion in there. It may not be today, it might be, I'm not sure, but it will probably be either today or tomorrow. Thanks, Gerald, that's good. So let me know if you have any questions on that, particularly if you're in the live group. I'll try and schedule it at a time where people can join. If not, you can obviously always watch it a little bit later on. That won't be on YouTube, though. That'll only be on the Photography and Videography School. So, yeah, I thought I'd start sharing some things in there live as well. Okay, so no hissing. Rad said no hissing today. Yeah, I had the audio on the Sony a6500 up at 16 because I used an external microphone in the wedding shoot that I did. I didn't remember that, I forgot that I had to turn it down to 1. When you're dealing with these mics, I've got a Sennheiser mic above me. That's mic'd into the Zoom H4, and then it goes into the back of the camera. Because there's an amp in the Zoom H4, you have to turn the microphone volume down to basically 1, and that's what I forgot to do. So that's why there was that horrible audio hissing sound from last week's. I ended up downloading that video and using some software to take that hiss out, and then re-uploaded it, so it probably doesn't sound as bad as what it was for the people watching live. So let's go to the latest news, because I want to take you through a stack of stuff today, because I thought it might be interesting to go over the first news for the year. Again, like I said, if you want any questions, put them into the questions into the live discussion, because I'll come back to that at the end, and we can go through all of those questions together. So let's have a look here. So the first thing I wanted to look at was this is from Sony Alpha Rumours this morning, and it says what lenses we know are coming in 2018 and lenses that we might see coming. I'm just going to move this over actually so I can not look so far away in the camera. Okay, so what they're saying here is that in 2018... I'll just scroll this up. In 2018, we will get a ton of new lenses. Here's a full roundup of what we will get and what we can hope to get. So they're saying at this stage that the 100% sure of being released in 2018 is the Sony 400mm 2.8. And like I said, I think that's probably going to be around $13,000. That's my guess of what that lens is going to be. It's going to be pretty expensive. So it is definitely going to be a certain marketed target audiences of probably sports photographers and high-end wildlife shooters probably will get that lens. Another lens too down there is Zeiss 25 2.4 FE. Cheers. What do you guys think about that one? What do you think about a 25 2.4? It's an unusual focal f-stop. I don't know why it would be 2.4, but anyway, that's what they're saying that is. And also a lower 9mm 2.8 E-mount lens as well. So you're going to get a nice and wide, fast E-mount lens that you can use there. Now, the interesting things down here too are the rumoured lenses that are going to be coming out. So they're saying here that Sony have there's rumours it's a 135 1.8. That's going to be a pretty big lens. For a 1.8 lens at that focal length. They're saying there's an 80% chance that we're going to see that. It's probably an interesting lens. It would be one that I'd like to hire or rent or something and try it out just to give it a go. It may also be a lens that I may get. I'm not sure yet, but it certainly is an interesting focal length. It's also beautiful for portraits too. 135 is a lovely portrait lens. There's just a little bit more compression than what you get with the 85, obviously because it's a little bit longer. Sony 20mm 2.8, 50% chance to see this. The 18 to 55 2.8, APS-C E-mount, 50% chance to see that. That'd be quite a nice lens actually. Sony 200 to 600 FE, 30% chance to see this. And there's a Sigma 35 1.4 FE, 80% chance. Well, I definitely think we're probably going to see that one. More Sigma Art primes. Could be one or two of these primes at 14mm, 21mm, 50mm, and 135mm from Sigma. And the Sigma Art lenses are beautiful, very sharp, very well made. I used to use the Nikon, the 35 1.4 for Sigma when I was shooting Nikon, and I love that lens. It was beautiful. The Tonica, I always can never pronounce it, but super wide FE, or AF FE, and what else have we got? Standard zoom, AFFE, 90% chance to see that early 219. Zeiss Batis, FE prime lenses between 35 and 50mm, and Samyang AF lenses. Unclear what focal length, but there seems to be 100 to 135mm prime and zoom on their roadmap. So they're really interesting things. It's interesting that rumour there where it says Zeiss Batis between 35 and 50. I don't think we need any more 35mm lenses, to be honest. And I really don't think we need any more 50s. But let me know in the chat whether you think any of those lenses really interest you, or what lenses would you like to see Sony release, because I'd be really interested to see what you guys think about that. I mean, the main ones probably that I would like to probably see and love to try is the 135 1.8. I think that would be gorgeous. That could be a lens that really interests me. But apart from that, I'm not sure about the others, whether any of those would really interest me at this stage, but I'll have to sort of see what comes out in the roadmap. Obviously, the 400mm one is going to be way outside what I use. I'm not a sports shooter or really a wildlife shooter, so that for me probably wouldn't be useful. It certainly will be useful if you're doing sports. After using the 100 to 400mm lens, the GM version that I used the other day though, that one definitely interests me, but I'll talk to you about that a little bit later as well. So let's go on to the next news item. The Voigtlander classic 130, the 35mm 1.4 for Sony is now listed at B&H. So it's actually listed now there. And there's an interesting photo down there with the weather sealing saying he hopes that, is the new Voigtlander sealed enough for rain? Hope so. And you can actually see how much rain he's had that lens actually in as well. So it's interesting. But I've mentioned to you before that I do really love the Voigtlander lenses. They're stunning to use and the focusing is great. If you are dealing with video particularly, they're gorgeous to use for video because of the way they're not focused by wire. So they really are lovely lenses. And this might be lenses that I eventually move to for doing more video fusion type work. I may go down that path and buy some others. I've only got the 10.5mm 0.95 for the GH5 at the moment, but I certainly am interested in getting some for the Sony. I love that lens that much. So that's now listed anyway in B&H. It's not yet available though, but obviously you can say notify me when available, but it is coming soon according to that. This is also pretty interesting too, because this, I'm not sure about how I feel about this camera. I do have 2 GoPros, but the only thing I think that is disappointing about this camera is that it doesn't have internal 4K. Now, yes, it does have 1080p 60, and looking at the video from that, it is actually really sharp. So it does have really good 1080p 60p. It will do 4K 60p, but you obviously have to use it via HDMI and then connect a monitor, which in a lot of the ways defeats the purpose of having this tiny sports type camera. But let me know in the chat too whether anyone's got this. But this video was just released, and I'll leave these links down below so you can have a look at them. I'll just play a little bit of it. But when I viewed when I did view this video, it does actually seem really nice and sharp, really smooth. So it certainly could have a useful place for me shooting fusion. I probably guarantee that the next version of this will have 4K though. So that's probably what I'm going to wait for and just see how the next version of this comes out and what they actually put into that camera, because I really would like to have 4K. Now look, to be honest, most of the wedding videos that I'm doing, I do shoot in 4K, but then I'll only deliver it in 1080p. But I love the ability to be able to crop into that. So in the editing side of things, being able to shoot 4K is a real big advantage for me. It certainly gives me that bit where I can crop it. If you're using stabilization, you've got areas in the image that will allow it to be stabilized because it can crop in more. Things like that. If you're not quite level on the horizon, you can straighten it. There's all things like that. So it certainly is a great thing to be shooting 4K and then down sampling to 1080p when you're just outputting for people. Until everyone catches up with their TVs and all have 4K TVs, I probably won't be delivering much 4K. I have started to shoot 4K for YouTube now, and the video I posted, I think it was yesterday, yeah, it was yesterday, of showing the 100 to 400 was shot all in 4K. I used the Sony A7RIII to do that, and it was all shot in 4K, and I've delivered that in 4K. So sometimes I do deliver in 4K, but if I'm doing weddings, I am only delivering it in 1080p. So that could fit that, but like I said, I just haven't got the ability to crop in and do the things that I like to do with working with Fusion. Sometimes I don't have the time to frame perfectly, so having that, you know, that croppability in the file is important to me. But have a look at that video and let me know what you think about it. It does seem to be really quite nice and sharp. And the slow motion, because it's 1080p 60, it looks lovely. But let me know what you think about that anyway. I'd love to know how you guys think that. And if anyone has got it in the live chat, let me know as well, because I'd be curious to know what you guys think about it. The next question too is the Sony A5000 has been marked as discontinued by Sony in Japan. So now there's obviously rumours starting to come out that there'll be an A5200 soon. So that'll be interesting to see if that's announced very soon. Probably will be. They do have to have offerings in their lower end area, so it could be interesting anyway. So now it has been noted as discontinued, so that's an interesting rumour. Another one here, I noticed that one camera guy, Danny, posted a video talking about the Sony A9, and like I said, I'll leave these links down below. He did an extensive review showing how the Sony A7RIII focused as compared to the Sony A9. His conclusion was, in the end of the day, that the Sony A9 was better at focusing. So remember, I was talking to you recently about the fact that if you are dealing with people keep asking me which is the camera they should choose, and it really depends on what you're actually going to photograph. Because, to be honest, if you're dealing with anything with movement, if you're dealing with anything like events, sports, things like that, you're probably better off wildlife. If you were trying to capture birds that were flying, things like that, you would be better off with the A9. But if you're dealing with things like landscape, if you're dealing with things like portraits in studio, things like that, you're definitely better off with the a7RIII. But this was an interesting review because he took it through a number of tests. Now, he did say in it that the one thing that he was disappointed was the adapter. I'm not sure, I can't remember whether he used the 1-time converter or the 2-times converter, but he said he was a little bit disappointed with that. And Steve, who lent me the lens, the Sony 100-400, also backed that up with me the other day. He said that the Sony A9 was clearly better using the adapter. There was really no loss in focusing and things like that when you put the adapter on the A9. But you've also got to remember too that the Sony A9 will let you focus up to f11, whereas the Sony A7RIII will only let you focus up to f8. That can be a big difference if you're dealing with shooting in bright light and things like that. Being able to focus at f11 as against f8 is a big factor. So clearly they really have probably designed that adapter to work more with the Sony A9 than they have with the Sony A7RIII. But looking at his review, he did say that the A7RIII was, yes, it was good enough to do sports, but the A9 was better than what the A7RIII was. But anyway, you can have a look at that, and I'd love to know what you think about that in the live discussion too. And like I said, I'll leave that in the description box down below. So you can have a chat about that as well. Another thing that has just come out too is fieldMonitor. I've actually got this program. I haven't used it on the Sony yet. I've only used it on the GH5 because up until now, some of the features weren't working for the Sony. So now I will have to try it to give it a go with working with the Sony. But it is a great piece of software that you can download for the iOS. I'm not sure if it's available for Android. I don't know if it says there, but basically I've used it with my GH5, and the software is actually amazing what it will give you. But I noticed that they've just fixed some parts for the Sony Alpha cameras aimed at video production. It says it does have things like long exposure aids like false color, histogram, waveform monitors, markers, frame lines and grids. Yeah, it'll support LUTs, anamorphic support, but it wasn't a great choice for focus pulling due to low resolution images sent over Wi-Fi. And that was the problem that I found. The images over Wi-Fi were not good enough to actually pull focus. But apparently version 4.3 have added 2 focus assist modes. It's got peaking control, like those found in professional video viewfinders, and an edge mode that paints a bright edge detection image over a lower contrast normal image. Both assist modes are fully adjustable. Because at the moment, what I'm using is this. I'm obviously using the small HD focus, and I do love it. I mean, I really do like using this monitor. It's beautiful. It's really light. It obviously you can use your battery, so it'll then make the camera last a lot longer than using your standard things. And I bought the monitor hood, which lets me use this in daylight, because even though this is 700 nits, I think, which is really quite bright, you still have issues if you're looking at it with daylight. Well, the lens hood really does help, and having that, I bought this as an extra a little bit later on, has really made a big difference. So if you have got this HD focus, make sure that you do get the lens hood. But I've honestly found that this, and you probably should have a play with it, the fieldMonitor 4.3 really is an amazing program. If you're dealing with doing things over Wi-Fi, it's far better than anything that Sony offers or anything that the Panasonic offers, and it really is a professional type application, and I really do love it, and I hopefully will be playing around with more over the coming weeks or whatever. I might try and do a review on it at some time. So let me know too if anyone else has got that as well. I'd be really curious to know if anyone else is using that field monitor. But like I said before, I didn't use it previously because it did have, I mean, I used it on the GH5, but I didn't use it on my Sony cameras because it was lacking those features for focus assist and stuff, which now has been added in. So it may be worthwhile to have another look. The beauty is, if it's good focusing, well, then I could be sitting somewhere else and actually pulling the focus remotely, which could be a real benefit. So that's why I'm saying I will have to try that again. Another thing which I thought was interesting as well was this I saw the other day on the news was that DJI, well, someone has crashed a DJI Phantom 4 camera into a Black Hawk helicopter, and it did leave a 1.5-inch dent on one of the main rotor blades, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. Does it have that? Yeah, there it is there. You can see there the dent that's actually caused on the rotor blade, so you can see it has caused quite a bit of damage, and obviously they found the bits as well. I'm not sure whether that was stuck on it or whether they've just found that later on, but clearly, guys, if you're flying your drones, don't fly them anywhere where you shouldn't be flying them, because you're going to ruin it for everyone else that does have these drones. Be sensible. Don't go too high and stay away from anything that's flying. Always be wary and look around you to make sure there's nothing that you could potentially damage. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting story to actually read about that. The main thing I wanted to say about this is we don't want to ruin it for everyone else. So when you see people doing things like that, you know, remind them that, you know, guys, please don't ruin it for us, because we want to be able to fly these wherever we want to. Another thing too was, and you can view this if you like, I'll put the link down below, but there is a video out now showing the making of the Sony A9, which again, you know, it's incredible when you watch how these cameras are made. The technology that goes inside these cameras is pretty amazing, and it's a good thing to watch just to see actually how these cameras are made. And the last thing I wanted to talk to you about with news and rumours was this got sent to me today, and I thought I'd talk to you about this because this is really interesting. I got sent this from Sony Australia this morning. Obviously, I'm a Sony Pro member, but basically they're saying thank you for your participation in this Sony Pro support program. As our range expands and more professionals turn to the Alpha, we are always looking at new ways to support your work in the field. As part of our commitment, we are offering express service and same-day loan gear for credential photographers shooting at the Australian Open. Now, I'm not sure whether you follow the tennis here in Australia. The Australian Open is just about to start in the coming, I think, in a couple of weeks. So the Australian Open it's obviously a Grand Slam tennis tournament, so it's one of the biggest in the world. There's a few of them held around, like Paris, I think New York. There's a couple around that I think it's New York. But clearly Sony are starting to push into this Sony area. You can see here that they're saying we're offering express services. So if you have issues with your camera, they're giving you express services. Same day loan gear. So if you do actually have to loan gear, they will loan it to you for the day if you're shooting at the 2018 Open. They're also saying this is part of a new program to provide enhanced support for photographers at sporting majors and other high-profile events, including the Commonwealth Games in 2018, which is also held here in Australia. You just have to be a credentialed press photographer. You send that to obviously this person down here, and then they'll get in contact with you and they'll give you the Sony Pro support over the coming weeks. So that's a really interesting thing, because you always get the so-called Canon shooters and Nikon shooters saying, oh, Sony's no good for sports. Clearly, they are lifting their game. So it's really good to see that they're offering things like this now. They are going to be there at the big sporting shoots that are out there now. They are going to have loan gear available like Canon and Nikon will give you. So they clearly are upping their game with things like that. So I thought that was a great email this morning anyway, and I got that, like I said, this morning. I thought I'd share that with you guys because I thought Sony are lifting their game in that area, and I've been nothing but happy with the Sony Pro support system. It's just been fantastic. And now, so before we go into questions, I'm just going to bring up this shoot because I want to talk to you about how the Sony A9 went with the 100 to 400 millimeter that I used on Monday, I think it was, or Tuesday actually. I used it, and I posted the video up yesterday, which I'll show you in a second. But I did post that the other day. Now, luckily, one of my fellow YouTube, well, he's not a fellow YouTuber, he actually follows me on YouTube, Steve, contacted me because he heard me say that I would love to try the 100 to 400 millimeter lens, and he actually contacted me and said, would I like to try it? And I said, yeah, fantastic. So we organised a shoot. Luckily, his daughter actually is an international model. So Lulu that you see in that video is actually an international model. She works for high-end agencies. People have asked me if they could have her Instagram page, and I've actually said to the people that asked that, look, no, she doesn't need any people to follow her because she is, like I said, from the high-end area. She doesn't need to basically promote herself in that way, so she's not interested in that. I am going to send her the images, obviously, though, and she can use them herself. She's contacted me to say she wanted the images, so I will be sending her those images, but she was just wonderful to work with. She was lovely, amazing as a model. She moved beautifully. You know, to be honest, guys, I've worked with a number of more higher end models, and you can tell the minute that you work with a high end model, you can pick it within 2 minutes because they just make subtle movements. And if you look at the video, it's hard to tell because I have sped it up. But, you know, when you're working with these high end models, they're not moving all around the place. They will just move their face, subtle movements, and hand subtle movements. Their fingers are always beautiful and long. And she was outstanding to work with, and I will be posting more images of that shoot shortly, but I posted a few yesterday. But she was amazing and a really beautiful person, so it was so good to work with her. And her dad Steve was really just like me, although he had hair. He was into the same things I was into. He was into the same music that I was into, like Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and everything else, and we had a great day talking. I was also sort of giving him a little bit of instruction about flash work as well on the day. But he, like I said, he lent me the 100 to 400 to use for the shoot. And like I said, I hadn't used that lens before, and I really have to say after using it, it was stunning. That lens to me, basically all around, is probably the perfect Sony lens. And I really think now that if I didn't have my 70 to 200 f4, I probably would buy that lens, and I may even buy that lens still, but I probably wouldn't buy the 70 to 200 again probably now. I think if I was buying a lens now, I would actually be buying that 100 to 400 millimeter. I certainly would not buy the 70 to 200 f4. And to be honest, like I've said to you before, the 2.8 version just does not interest me. I'm not interested in that version. And this is, remember guys, there's probably people going to hop in the chat and say, this is the way I shoot. I probably would prefer that 100 to 400 than the 70 to 200 GM, even though they weigh a similar amount, because that focal length is incredible in its usability and what you can do. It also works amazing with the adapters too. The 100, the 1.4 times and the 2 times adapter work just amazingly. And honestly, the shots were so sharp out of that lens. It was incredible. So I'm just going to go over to Lightroom for you just to sort of talk to you about the actual images themselves. But basically, I shot all different focal lengths for the whole day. I was Tony asked me before in the YouTube discussion what focal lengths did I mostly use, and I ranged through everything the day, and I was deliberately trying to push it up to, you know, near 400 millimeter, and I was sort of going below 200, around 200. So I was pushing it all over the place trying to get it. This actually was 189 millimeters. But basically, as you go through, and someone said to me that the bokeh, when they looked at the video, wasn't that nice, and I thought, you've got to be kidding me. Honestly, these pixel peepers, there's nothing wrong with the way the bokeh looks in this lens for what it is. I think it's actually the compression, the way the lens works is outstanding. Its sharpness is unbelievable. It is so sharp right through its whole focal range, and it was just beautiful to use. And focus is like lightning on this lens, and I could shoot 20 frames per second. My 70 to 200 f4 will only give me 15. It's not one of the lenses that Sony will allow to do 20 frames per second, so I did use this at 20 frames per second. But I just thought I'd take you through a little bit. And like I said, if you want to see more about how I shot this and the lighting that I used and everything else, join the Facebook group, because I will give that discussion on Facebook. But basically, if you're looking at it, you can sort of see that I've used different shots. And again, Lulu was fantastic because she just moved around the whole time just to give me that many options that I could work with. You can sort of see here, there's a light up here. I had a Pro Photo light there and another one at the front, and it's just giving that lovely fill that's coming through the side of her there. I'll just bring up this this thing so I can show you. You can see here that the light's actually there. I have one in the front too, but you can see it's given her that lovely rim lighting that's coming through the side here as well, and the front light's obviously giving her the fill. But Lulu was fantastic. So, she was just moving around. There were some retouch ones. I'll show you the retouch ones after, actually. But again, I've just got that nice separation because it's giving that fill from the background against this lovely dark green that's actually coming through. And I love the compression. And I love the look of what the images are giving me here. There's another one here that I've done too, having similar lighting. I also tried, that was around 200mm. I also tried some using, this was 146mm. If you're looking at it, I'll just drag that down so you can see. Now, most of the time I shot at 5.6, and there was a reason for that, because if you shoot at 5.6, the aperture doesn't seem to change at all, no matter how you zoom through the whole system. It seems to work a little bit better. It seems to stay more constant. So I set it at 5.6 and then it didn't lock. The reason was, I'm saying that because I was trying to shoot manual and not have anything changed, I just set the aperture at 5.6 and work from there. But it's beautiful and sharp in all the images. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Looking at my monitor particularly, I'm not sure how sharp that's coming through YouTube, but it is really, really sharp. Now you can see here too, I'm running ISO 1000, so I am running it at ISO 1000. And now the reason for that is that, I'll just show you how sharp this is. Like, it's showing all the skin detail, the hair through, through areas. Like it is tack sharp, this lens. Basically, because I was running these at anywhere up to 400mm, I wanted to make sure my shutter speed was fast enough. So I wanted to run 1/500th of a second shutter speed on this lens. So I upped the ISO to 1000 to allow that. But clearly with the A9, it's not an issue when you're dealing with those sort of ISOs. And again, you can sort of see just as I went through, Lulu is just moving just sort of slightly over. She often gives beautiful eye contact. Again, I even adore this. I asked her to close her eyes here, and it's just stunning. We moved over to a bridge area where she started walking towards me. I was trying some of the continuous focus on the camera as well. And it's just beautiful. I mean, I am so impressed with how this lens worked, guys. And I did wonder how it would go for fashion, but I think it's easily good enough for your fashion type shoots. It's just beautiful. I mean, it's so pretty that, they're just stunning. And if you look here, these are the ones where she's actually dancing on, and I'll just bring up a YouTube thing because I'll show you how this was done, because you can sort of see, you'll see where the flash comes in a second. So I had the flash on the side. Let me just move this so you can see it. You can see here, and it's flashing continuously, so I was shooting at 20 frames per second. It just works so fantastic in the way that it works, and let me see if I can bring that back to where it was again, just so you can see it. So the focusing was just outstanding on this lens, and basically it didn't miss a beat. I was running continuous focus some of the days here. You can see when she's twirling around that I was using the continuous focus. I was shooting at the 20 frames per second. You can see here, if you look at the Pro Photo on the right-hand side there, it's flashing. It's going at 20 frames per second. It kept up with everything. I mean, it was just, what a fantastic system that Sony have given us now. And when people say that they just haven't got lenses, well clearly, that what they're saying is just rubbish. And I absolutely adored that lens, and it certainly will be one that probably down the road I will get, because I would love to use that in weddings for the compression alone. And if you're looking at the retouched images, I'll just show you how they came up, all the retouched ones. I mean, it's just beautiful, and you can't tell me that. Well, she like I said, she's a high-end model and she loves them. Again, it's just beautiful. You know, that the results that it's getting are outstanding. It's incredibly sharp. The colours are nice and vivid. The separation against the background is stunning. The compression is stunning. You've got that focal range up to 400 mils that you can use, and it seems to be sharp right away through the whole focal range, which also is fantastic as well. You know, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, I just absolutely loved it. And the colour, again, of the Sony A9 is outstanding. And when people say you can't use the Sony A9 for basically portraits, well, I mean, I think this shows you can. I mean, it's just stunning. It's just a beautiful lens. So that's that. So anyway, let's go to questions, because I'd love to see what you guys have for questions. And let's bring up this. And I need to move these out of the way. So I'm going to scroll back to just see. I forgot to drink my beer. Cheers. So let's have a look and see where people have started to talk. A lot of people are talking about the weather, obviously, because it's down there. It's so cold. Delta Dave said the A-mount 135 1.8Z is stunning. Have you got that, Dave? Have you got that lens? How heavy is it? Is it really heavy? I'd be curious to know what sort of weight that you're dealing with that lens. But yeah, well, there you go. So Delta Dave has said the A-mount 135 is stunning. Gerald says 135 1.8. That's what he'd actually like. Rad said the 9mm will be interesting, as long as the edges are controlled for distortion and warping, but I'm assuming it will be a fisheye style lens at that focal length. It could be, Rad. I'm not sure whether it would be fisheye because you have that crop factor in it, but it could be. But I mean, the 10mm is not fisheye, so it may not be fisheye on the APS-C type lens, because remember, you've got that 1.5 crop factor on that, so it could be an interesting lens anyway. Rad said, did you or are you planning on getting the a7RIII? I did, and there's a substantial difference in speed to the a7R2. Still have to research the menu and read the manual. Rad, no, not at this stage. Because I've got the a7R2 and I've got the A9, I won't be upgrading to the a7R3. The a7S III may interest me a bit more, or if they bring out an a6700, but I'm quite comfortable at the moment. To be honest with you, I'm only using my a7R2 20% of the time. Most of the time I'm using my A9. So that's the thing with the way I shoot. I adore the A9. Like I said, most of my shoot is events, weddings, and like you just saw with the fashion type shoot there. If I'm working in the studio, I'm going to be using my a7R2. But the a7R2 in studio is ample for what I need. So at this stage, I probably won't be upgrading. Having said that, though, if I didn't have the A9 and I wasn't at all, I would possibly buy the a7R3. And if I didn't have the a7R2, I would definitely buy the a7R3. But because I've got the A9 and that is most of my work is done with that camera, I love that file size. For me, it's perfect. The focusing for what I do, I also do a lot of dance work as well. The focus, and I've gone to the camera shop and extensively tested the Sony a7R3. I do feel personally that the A9 is definitely still better than what the a7R3 is. Remember too that you've got nearly maximum coverage in the viewfinder, so when I've got dancers that are coming out from the side of the screen doing jumps and stuff, the A9 will pick that up immediately, because remember, it's based as that sports camera. So for me, the A9 is definitely a better camera for what I use, but remember, everyone is different. So if you're not shooting the same things I'm shooting, you might find that the a7R3 is better. But for me at this stage, having the a7R2 and the A9, I don't feel I need the a7R3 at this stage. Things may change in the future. If my a7R2 breaks or whatever, then I would get an a7R3. Take the Shooter said, yeah, the a7R3 is okay for events, but still issues over the A9. I use A9 for 90% of events, and that's right. Take the Shooter, it is. look, the perfect camera for events and weddings is the Sony A9. You may disagree with me, and that's fine because everyone sees different things and loves different things about cameras. I don't need a 40-odd megapixel camera to do a wedding. I'm quite happy with the 20-odd megapixel file size. I am quite careful when I do weddings of framing, so it's not like I really have to go in for cropping substantially. And remember, I used to shoot at weddings with the D3S, and that was 12 megapixels, and I was quite happy. So if I can crop the A9 in, you know, probably around about 30–40% and still get away with it. But I'm not doing that very often. I still do sometimes the formal portraits, so I still may use the a7RIII. But to be honest, like I said, 90% of the time I'm just using the A9. I'm Brown said that one camera guy used both the 1.4 and 2x converter. He liked the 1.4 better. Yeah, like I said, Steve mentioned to me the other day in the shoot that I just didn't have time to try the adapter. He had it there and I showed that in the video. But he said the 2x adapter worked fantastic. So there you go. Take the Shooter Photography said it's not good enough to do sports unless it's side pictures alongside the A9. Look, the A9 is definitely better for sports than what the a7RIII is. There's no doubt about it. The focusing is a bit better. The coverage is a little bit better. And I can't see the reason why a lot of the time you're going to be using 40-odd megapixels. If you have to upload those files, you just don't need that file size, I don't think, for sports. I wonder if an update would help with the focus with the adapters. It may, but I think a lot of it too has to be with that f11 to f8 focusing as well, Rad. Like I said, the A9 is definitely developed in a different way to what the a7RIII is. So I think you're probably always going to find those converters will work better with the A9 than they will with the a7RIII. Take the Shooter Photography said, yeah, I like the 1.4 better. And like I said, the thing is, guys, there's nothing wrong. And when everyone keeps asking me that if I'm going to upgrade to the a7RIII, and I'm not bagging that camera. That is an amazing, it's probably the best fusion camera that there is out there. If you're dealing with doing video and stills, it's probably still the best fusion camera that there is available. So if you're dealing with an all-around camera, the a7RIII is just the best camera that's out there. But for me, like I said, for me personally, shooting weddings and the type of work that you just saw a minute ago, the A9 I'm going to be using 90% of the time. I love the adapters. I mean, I just adore the fact that I can change things quickly just by using the dials over here, you know, for using your focusing and stuff like that, which, let me see if it'll focus, yeah. I really do love this adapter. I really wish they'd put that on the other camera, because I'll go and grab my a7R II and I'll be hunting for that to change to AFC or manual focus or the shutter speed. It is very quick to be able to use that dial, and I do love that dial. So there's certain things about the A9 that I really do love. But that, like I said, that's for my type of shooting. Everyone is different. Like I said, if my a7R II broke, I would probably buy an a7R III. Rad said, I wonder if an update... Oh, I've just gone through that. Richard said the 135 1.8, yeah, he'd like that lens. Gerald said, yes, pulling for Serena to repeat the Open. Gerald said... it is obvious that Sony is doing everything to be a major player at events, pointing towards Olympics in Japan. I am also in Sony Pro Support, and that was interesting how I showed you that article. It's great that Sony are now trying to push into the sports area, which is really good as well. What else have we got? Tony said Lulu was about... I know, it was a classic. I mean, if you look, and I'll show you because you're going to laugh, but basically if... you look at the size of Lulu in these images. I'll show you the beginning so you can actually get an idea of the size difference. I love it. If you look here... Oh, hang on. Let me just scroll over to this. You know, the first thing Kerry said when she saw this, my wife, she said, you should have sat up. And I said, I know, I'm hunching down. Lulu, and again, this is how you can tell a really good model. Look at her posture is perfect. She's sitting stunningly straight with beautiful shoulders. And here I am slouching back down. Steve is also slouching back down. You know, I look like I'm actually I mean, I'm only short anyway. I'm only 5'6", I think, or whatever that is. So I am only short anyway. But if we look back here... to some of the images where we're together. Let me just play that and you'll see. I mean, she does, yeah, she towers over me and it's quite funny. I love it. It never worries me. I mean, I've always been short, so I've always copped that short thing my whole life, so I just laugh about it. I mean, I have a good sense of humour, so it makes me laugh. But I know it made me look like I was something like from, what is it? What's the movie with the miniature guys in it in New Zealand? Oh, God, I'm going dumb now. I can't remember. But anyway, I look like I'm a miniature person or something standing next to them. The Hobbit. That's what I was trying to say. I look like I'm from The Hobbit or something. Yeah, she was way taller, Tony. She was really tall, Tony. But you have to be like that to be a high-end model anyway. You do have to be really tall. Gerald said, I saw the vid of the shoot. Excellent. Thanks, Gerald. What time of the day was the shoot? Love the natural backlight. We started at 8 o'clock in the morning, Gerald. That's the thing. And this was one issue which was interesting because when I was speaking to Lulu, again, she said, what time are we shooting for the best light? And that's how you can tell you're dealing with a really good model. Because normally, if you mention that to any girl when you're dealing with building a portfolio, if you said 8 o'clock in the morning, they'll be, oh, you know, I can't get my makeup done. I can't do this. I won't be able to make it until 10 o'clock or whatever. She was there at 8 o'clock dead sharp and we shot straight away. Again, it's a sign of a really good model. So yeah, that was at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's why that lighting was so pretty. Delta Dave said, it's as heavy as it is stunning. I love using my Minolta A9. Okay, so it is heavy. But again, I suppose if you're dealing with 1.8 at 135, well, it's going to be a heavy lens. You just have to get over that, I suppose. Every video I've seen comparing the A9 to the a7RIII, the A9 wins on AF, and it will, Dave. It's definitely better on autofocus. Like I said, I did try it in the shop, so I can talk from experience. I had my A9 and the a7RIII, and the A9 was definitely better in AF. There was no doubt about it. I could tell the difference. Rad said, I'm waiting for the A6700 or the 7000 with crop factor and 4K 60p, please. That's what I'd love Sony to give us, honestly. If they bring that out, the A6700, I might sell the GH5, I'll see. But that could be one where I could sell my GH5 and get an A6700. Like I said, I'll be happy if they only give me 4 to 5 minutes of 4K 60p. It's all I need. So please, Sony, give us that. I would be tickle pink. Studio said, type speed posting in the YouTube search mask. Click the 4th video, it's just hilarious. So it works if you have enough time. Oh, speed posing. Oh, I have. Yeah, I've actually looked at that, Studio 96. It is hilarious. They're the Asian girls, aren't they? They are really funny. They're just like this. They're like robots moving. It is really funny. He said 119 posing in 40 seconds. Imagine doing that job. It's really interesting. Like I said, I really enjoyed photographing Lulu. She was gorgeous, and not only that, like I said, she had a stunning personality, which is a hard thing to find sometimes. But you know, you could clearly tell that she had done high-end modelling because of the way that she moved, her confidence, the things that she wanted to offer in the shoot. She just immediately did whatever I asked her without question. It was quite cool in the morning, actually, and she didn't whinge about being cold. She just got on with the job. She was fantastic. She was stunning. The only thing for me, I'd love to work with her again, but she's moved to another state, so it might happen one day. But yeah, she's moved to another state a fair way from me now, 500, 600 kilometres away. So it's going to be hard to organise another shoot with her. But yeah, she was just gorgeous, and I really wanted to thank her and thank Steve for what he did. Are there any last questions, guys, before we finish for the day? Don't forget to like the Facebook group, though, so you can see the things that we're going to be posting, and you can see some of the live things that I'm going to be doing as well. Gerald said, after the new GH5, Sony will certainly give you 4K 60p in the a7S3 or the a6700. Yeah, I agree that they probably will, guys. I mean, I certainly think that the a7S3 has to give you 4K 60p. And I definitely think that's the reason why they're taking so long to release that camera. They're taking so long because they do have to get over the overheating. I think if they tried to do the overheating at the moment, it probably would overheat in a camera the size of the body that's in there. So whether they're bringing in another processor, whether the body is going to be a little bit different or better cooling technology is involved, they've obviously got to get over that. And that's probably why it's taking so long to come out. But like I said, I'd be happy with an a7RIII with 4 minutes of 4K. That's all I need. Remember, most of the shoots that you will shoot are only for 5 to 10 seconds. That's the average for me when I'm doing a fusion video for weddings and stuff, is about 5 to 10 seconds. 10 seconds is quite a long time. So if you can give me 10 seconds in 4K 60p, I'll be happy. So I'd love them to give me a a7RIII at that. And remember too, I think that is the best gimbal camera there is out there. The a6500 at the moment is by far the best gimbal camera that's out there. I adore that for on gimbals. It's light, the focus is outstanding. I leave it on autofocus. I can't use the GH5 on a gimbal because I can't trust the autofocus. Whereas the a6500 and the a6300 are just amazing. You don't have to get the a6500 either, guys. You can get the a6300. They're exactly the same. They work the same. The focusing is the same. The image looks the same. The only difference really is the stabilization. You don't need stabilization if you're dealing with a gimbal. And the buffer is better. But if you want to save money, get the a6300 and buy a better lens. That's probably a better option than getting the a6500. But, you know, that's just my personal discussion. What else have we got here? Take the Shooter said, damn the AF, just the writing of the 42 megapixel files to the card gets on your nerves during events with the a7R3. Almost gets on your nerves with the A9, but much better, especially if you want to switch to video. Yeah, look, to be honest, I've never ever had a buffer issue with weddings with the A9. Tag the Shooter. But that's just the way that I shoot. And people do comment on the way that I shoot. I am, and I've mentioned this before, I actually am quite slow, and the more and more experienced I've got over the years, the slower that I've actually got. And a lot of brides actually do say to me, and particularly bridesmaids and stuff will say to me, David, you're amazing. You'll take one photo and then move on. Whereas she said a lot of other photographers are going bang, 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 and just shooting away. I will often only take 1 or 2 shots and move, whereas I'll spend more time setting the shot up. So the buffer to me really is not an issue, but that's just the way that I shoot. Everyone shoots different. You know, we all do shoot differently. Rad said, I just want to say that I appreciate your channel and that you spend the time with us. Your input is always great. Thanks so much, Rad. I really appreciate that. Like I said, I'm here for you guys. I'm not sponsored by anyone. Don't take payments from anyone to review gear. I'm always going to tell you guys the truth. So that means a lot to me. Gerald said, saving for the A9 to go with my a7R3 and the a6500, more jobs to do. And that's the perfect combination, Gerald. Like I said, if I didn't have the a7R2, I would get the a7R3 in a heartbeat. I would get that straight away if I didn't have the a7R2. But I do, and I'm quite happy with the a7R2 at this stage because I use the A9 so much. And I love the a6500 and the a6300. I adore both of those cameras. They're both outstanding. Oh, thank you so much, Rad. I really appreciate that. Do you ever travel to New York? I haven't for about 1.5 years, Rad. I went there, I think, a couple of years ago, and I loved it. I am intending to go back. I'm just not sure when. I'm going to Thailand at the end of this month for a couple of weeks on a holiday, a vacation, as we say holiday in Australia, it's vacation in the US. So I'm going to Thailand. I'm not sure if we'll do anywhere else next year. We may, but I certainly will be coming back to the New York, US and LA as well, of other areas, because I want to organise a meet-up with you guys. So I will be coming over eventually, just not sure when. Tag the Shooter said, oh, for weddings, yes, but I shoot a lot of fashion shows and sports. But wedding, I shoot like you, Dave, 1 or 2 shots and move on. Yeah. I mean, like I said, if I was shooting just total fashion all the time, I would be shooting with the a7R3. That's for sure. I mean, if I was shooting that type of thing, when I do fashion shoots here in the studio, I'm still going to be shooting with the a7R2 because I want the resolution and I want that for retouching. But to be honest, the type of image I got the other day with the A9 out there was outstanding. I mean, I'm really happy with how that went. But if I was doing studio particularly, I would still be using that. If I'm dealing with wanting the most dynamic range possible in a wedding, like doing the formal shots later on, I'll use my a7R2 or you would use the a7R3. I also love the silent shooter. I'm using that more and more and more. The electronic shutter in the A9, shooting silently, I love. And having that silent shooter because there's no wear and tear on the camera. They're little things that I really do appreciate and love to use. The rolling shutter is definitely better on the A9 as well. If you're using electronic shutter, it's definitely better than the a7RIII. I did test the shot of that in the camera shop as well, moving the camera fairly fast, and you could see there was rolling shutter issues as well. But if I was doing just total studio work and things like that, or if I was doing landscape, I would definitely be buying the a7RIII. Any last questions before we go? Apart from that, I'll be having possibly another beer. Tomorrow, I'll probably have to have a few because it's going to be 42 degrees Celsius. It's going to be nuts, so I think there'll be a few beers. I had a lovely Guinness last night, sitting outside having dinner in a local pub. That was amazing as well. I'm still mad at you, Dave, for stopping your wedding business. No, I am going to do that. I promise I'm actually going to do that. Yeah, and you know what? I did actually think, Tag the Shooter, that I may start doing that on the Facebook page too. That might be a place where I can actually start doing that. I am going to get back to that at this stage. It's just that it hit. The reason why I stopped doing that so much was because it hit at the time where the wedding season had picked up again. I definitely intend to go back onto that because there's still lots I have to discuss with you about software and things like that that I am going to do shortly. So I promise I will get back to it. I will, definitely. All right, guys. Well, we might call that the end of the day. How long's that been? 1 hour exactly. So please, if you can, give me a thumbs up. Any comments that you'd like me to discuss, leave them down below because obviously the live show is just about finished. So leave those down below. I do always personally answer questions that people have actually done. Tag the Shooter said he's unsubscribed. I'll make it up to you, Tag the Shooter. It amazes me the number of YouTubers out there, and honestly, I think it's terrible because people are asking people to subscribe to their site and they won't answer questions. I think that's rude. And to be honest, if you're asking for people to subscribe to your, and I'm talking to you, people will know who I'm talking about. If people ask you to subscribe, if I ask people to subscribe and then I don't answer their questions, I think that's unethical. So guys, if you are watching this and you are another YouTuber, please, if you ask people to subscribe and someone asks a question, have the decency to answer that question for the people that are following you. And like I said, I always answer questions that people ask me. And that's what I will always do. So if I didn't have the time to do that, I wouldn't ask people to subscribe. So that's about it anyway, guys. So cheers. Susie's back there. She'll probably have another beer with me in a minute. And I'll catch you all again for the next video soon. I will have a couple of other live shoots that I'm going to put up in the next coming days as well. Join the Facebook channel because I will probably go over that shoot and discuss that as well. So catch you guys, and I'll see you all again for the next video soon. G'day from down under. Bye for now.